this case, he said that he had not actually read the statements of the victims. So let me just say this. Something doesn't smell right here. We have a number of hours that we will be spending today to understand what and if Mr. Acosta understood the full scope of the evidence, what he used to make his decisions, and why he chose, instead of pursuing a prosecution in which we know there were at least 40 minors, and afterwards there were many more victims during the non-prosecution period, why he made that decision. And so we will be pursuing that in the coming hours in this interview under oath, but something doesn't smell right here, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
I'm Congressman Sue Huss from Virginia's 10th Congressional District. Everyone seems to agree that there was this terrible miscarriage of justice in this case, except Alex Acosta. He thinks that his sweetheart deal was actually the best course of action and still seems to stand by it. And he was investigating Jeffrey Epstein, who was a close friend of Donald Trump's, and this came up during his vetting process to join the Trump administration. And so it seems like it's starting to make more sense every day to me why the Trump administration won't release the files, is because Alex Acosta was involved in this sweetheart deal, and it seems like the Trump administration is going to continue this cover-up until Oversight Dems gets to the bottom of this, because we're the ones that have actually been pushing the right questions in this case.
Good afternoon. It is clear from what we have heard, and we know this, Alex Acosta helped Jeffrey Epstein evade the law. Allowing Epstein a single state charge and a non-prosecution agreement is a slap in the wrist, despite over 30 identified victims at the time. As my colleagues have mentioned, it is clear that Alex Acosta holds no remorse and does not feel, even in hindsight, that Jeffrey Epstein received a sweetheart deal. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, we all sat in the room with the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We heard directly from them, including individuals who were raped and abused by Epstein during this sweetheart deal and during the time period where Alex Acosta made sure that Jeffrey Epstein was able to evade the law. I continue to have more questions now than I did walking into the room earlier today, because this is somebody who is not clearly answering questions. We still need to find out, why is it that the Donald Trump administration felt that he deserved to be the Secretary of Labor during the first Trump administration? So many questions are left to be answered. I think Alex Acosta is a small but important part of this, and it's important to remember that this is a massive cover-up. There are many more people involved, financial institutions involved, potentially foreign governments involved, but this is one key part to getting to the bottom and getting to the answers that we need to get justice for the survivors.
Hi, Congressman Dave Menn out of California 47, and before coming to Congress, I was a law professor at UC Irvine. And I'll tell you, after the first hour sitting with Alex Acosta, I found him to be completely non-credible as a witness. His answers were evasive, they obfuscated, and they were just not believable. Just to give you one example, we know that as chief federal prosecutor, in addition to bringing a long charging memo and a prosecution memo, had actually said that the computer evidence that was being withheld by the defense at that point in time, all these files, the surveillance videos, perhaps child pornography, they were not producing it. She had said that that was a smoking gun. That would put this whole thing to bed. When I asked Alex Acosta about this, his response was that he didn't actually review the evidence on this case and would have no input on this, which is just impossible to believe given the high-profile nature of Jeffrey Epstein at the time, given the fact that Alex Acosta was having meetings with the attorneys for Jeffrey Epstein contemporaneously with all this. Completely non-credible. I doubt we'll get a lot of honesty out of him today, but what we're hoping to get is a roadmap to the types of evidence that we can demand from, as the Oversight Committee, from the Epstein estate, a roadmap to that, and of course we're going to continue to get, I believe, a lack of remorse, a lot of obfuscation out of Alex Acosta. Very frustrating, but we are going to get answers. Thank you.
Good afternoon. James Walkinshaw from Virginia's 11th District. I was sworn into Congress last week, and one of the first things I did was sign the discharge petition to release the Epstein files. And what we heard today, what I heard today, validated that decision for me. There is a clear through line over the course of this Epstein tragedy, and it is a callous disregard for the victims and the survivors. And Mr. Acosta demonstrated that today. We know that he signed off on the sweetheart deal for Jeffrey Epstein without consulting with the survivors. Today, he refused to accept what those survivors have told us, that after Jeffrey Epstein was released as a result of that sweetheart deal, he went on to abuse more women. A callous disregard for victims and survivors. And we are going to continue to push and push and push and fight so that those survivors get the transparency and the justice that they deserve. Thank you.
Let me just close up, and then if there's one question or two, we've got to get back to this deposition of these interviews. Just want to remind everyone, so we actually heard from the survivors just recently. This is just a couple of weeks ago. One of the survivors that was there was very clear that she was abused and assaulted and raped by Jeffrey Epstein during his work release, and during that time when he was out, during that 18-month period that was given to him by Mr. Acosta and his team. And yet Mr. Acosta stands by the deal, stands by the fact that women were assaulted and raped during that time, and clearly many before, and would not even agree that anyone was actually abused during that time. We asked him directly if he actually understood that during the sentence that Jeffrey Epstein received, that he went on to abuse other women, and he would not answer that question. He said he was not aware that that actually happened, that he could not confirm that that actually happened. That has been widely reported. And so he is completely not credible, and he's completely has been clearly involved in the broader cover-up that is happening right now, clearly being directed by the White House and the Attorney General. Lastly, we call again on the President and the Attorney General to release the Epstein files so that the full truth of what happened can be released to the public, and most importantly, the survivors to get the justice that they deserve. There's one question or two, and then we're going to head back.
Mr. Garcia, you covered a lot on Acosta, but we need to ask you about the Jeff Zients transcript. There's been a lot of reporting about his testimony regarding the president's cognitive ability when he was president, suggested that he needed multiple meetings to make decisions, that he'd slowed down. Do you agree with the characterization about what's been reported, and what was your take on that interview?
Look, I think the Republicans keep trying to focus on the past, and they keep focusing on President Biden and his health, while they're ripping away health care from 17 million Americans. Right now, we're focused on the Epstein interview. Yes.
Question. During this first part of this interview, did any more names come up that you might want to investigate, or who might have been quote on this client list?
I think that every single interview conversation that we have, there are more people that we want to talk to, and certainly more information that we need. But in order to get to the truth, we need the release of the files. Next question.
You brought up vetting several times around his labor secretary position. Did Acosta say he was actually asked about the Epstein investigation while he was vetted for labor secretary?
He was evasive.
He was very evasive about it.
Yeah. So he was asked that question,
Yeah.
and he wouldn't really answer the question.
I don't think we got a clear answer. I don't believe we got a clear answer who Acosta was speaking with, or representatives of who may have been speaking to him, not just before that confirmation, but also possibly after. And with that, we're going to actually head back to the questions. So thank you very much.
Mr. Garcia, do you disagree with the characterization at all?
We disagree with the characterization of Zients yesterday. Do you have any comment about Zients' comment?
Thank you all. Appreciate your patience.
Look, I'm right there with you. I'm right there. I'm hoping for 103 too, right?
So I'll give you an update if anyone has any questions. I think the interview's going very well, and Mr. Acosta is thus far being very forthcoming. Any questions?
Sure. What's your assessment of his responses with regards to the sweetheart deal? One of the colleagues came out, Burchett, he said that he didn't think he had the help from FBI. Demser saying that he botched the investigation himself. What is your assessment?
Well, we're still digging in, and this is going to be a very long transcribed interview, so there are those are all questions we're going to try to ask and determine the answer. So we'll see. He's still got several hours worth of questions to answer, so we should know the answer to that hopefully very soon.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you about Jeff Zients and that interview? There's been some reports about what he told your committee. What was your overall
Who's that now?
Jeff Zients, the
Yeah.
Biden chief of staff. What was your impression of that interview?
Based on the notes that I read from the interview, because we had the oversight hearing at the same time, but the staff, I've sat down and talked with the staff. I think that he was very clear that he thought that obviously the president wasn't in the same mental shape that he was at the beginning of his term, but it was surprising when we started digging in on who was making the decisions in the White House and things like that. Obviously, we have a lot of questions about the potential unauthorized use of the auto pen. And when we were talking about the pardons, he mentioned that Hunter Biden was present when they were discussing the pardons. I thought that was unusual because that was part of the arguments that the Democrats were making as to why we didn't need to investigate the Biden family influence peddling was, well, Hunter Biden wasn't a part of the government. He didn't have any role, but the chief of staff said he was right there in the room discussing all the pardons, which, by the way, impacted a significant number of his family.
Mr. Chairman. Those Treasury documents you had mentioned earlier, do you have a time frame from when you're going to be looking at them?
The bank documents?
Yes.
Very soon. We should be looking at them within the next week. So.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Stansberry mentioned that there were over 40, or at least 40 minors who were abused that were part of this investigation. Could you confirm that number, and could you also speak to how many of those victims were memorialized then in 302s by the FBI?
I don't know how many, the exact number of minors. I know that one of the things that Mr. Acosta has implied is that in talking with some of the victims, there were some that gave answers that weren't consistent with others. Some wanted to cooperate, some didn't. So we've got a whole binder full of questions. I think our deposition, and when you look at the transcript, will be a whole lot more substantive than what the Democrats did. The Democrats were in there; they were talking all over each other. It kind of looked like an oversight committee hearing in there with the Democrats' first hour. So hopefully, our deposers will get some more substantive answers for you than what the Democrats did in their first hour.
Democrats just came out and said that Mr. Acosta had evaded questions about whether the deal with Epstein had came up when he was a nominee for Trump's administration. How do you think he responded to those questions?
I don't know. I didn't catch that question that they asked. They were batting around so many questions about Trump. When the members were talking over each other, it was all about Trump, Trump, Trump. And I fear that this is going to be their next Russiagate narrative here.
What concerns might you have about whether this came up in vetting? I mean, this deal that happened with Epstein happened well before Acosta was in the administration. I'm curious if you have any questions about whether he was appropriately vetted, given your concern for the victims in this case.
Right, and I'm trying to remember, was the Epstein was it as prominent in the news during that?
It was prominent in local news, yes, sir.
Okay, in local, yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure the Democrats will ask more about that. Anything about Trump, they're going to try to check every box. I'm sure. We're trying to find out more. Who dropped the ball? Was it Acosta? Was it the FBI? Was it the local prosecutors? Was it the Department of Justice? Those are the questions I think we need to know, because that was part of what the victims asked us to do, was to hold people accountable in the government that failed to do their job. So that's what we're trying to do. And again, the Democrats focused their whole first hour, on Trump, 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 Trump. And I don't think the victims would have been real satisfied with that use of a whole hour of transcribed interview time.
So did you get more names of people you want to talk to, or people you think might be part of this client list?
Well, we're going to try to, obviously, I think we can get names of people that may have been involved in the investigation, that may have dropped the ball. We would love to have some names like that. I'm sure those are names that we'll question. But, we're going to need the victims to say some names, too, of some people. And we're going to follow the money. That was one of the things the attorneys asked us to do. And a lot of times, if the banks suspect there are people involved in human trafficking, they're going to list that in their suspicious activity report. So an opportunity to find some names with the suspicious activity reports. But I think it's going really well, and we'll continue to update you throughout the day, and obviously when it's finished.
Do you expect to hear from the line prosecutor? People keep placing blame on this line prosecutor.
Well, we'll see at the end of this, and this will be public record. We'll see where we need to go from here. But I think one thing that you can see is this is very serious interview. This is a very serious investigation. We are taking it very seriously. And again, my last words for now is the Trump administration is cooperating. They have turned over tens of thousands of pages of documents. They've allowed us to go in and get the bank violations, which is the one thing the attorneys for the victims asked us to do. They specifically asked us to follow the money like we did in the Biden investigation. I know NBC didn't always cover that very thoroughly, but I think people see that that was a very thorough, substantive investigation. We got a lot of information about shell companies and people involved in sending wires and things like that. If that was happening under Epstein, which is very possible, I would say probable, we should be able to get some names through the bank records. So,
Can I ask you one
thank
more
you.
question, sir? I'm trying to follow through. Did the former chief of staff tell you that the president was not cognitively up for the job?
Did the president? No. He said he thought the president could perform the duties of the presidency. They've all said that. Every single Biden staffer said that. I'm not.
That matched with the other testimony that he gave you, though?
Well, there were a lot of questions. So the questions are, should the president, where there's inconsistencies with all the people that we've talked to in the Biden administration is, should Biden have had a cognitive test? Some have said no, some have said yes. Some said that was never discussed. Some said, yeah, we discussed it a lot. So the whole issue of a cognitive test, which, again, this is an investigation, was the president cognitively capable of knowing what his staff was doing with the auto pen? Was the staff authorized to sign those documents by the president? If so, was he cognitively able to understand each and every individual pardon, each and every individual executive order?
How do you nail that down? How do you get
Well, it's very difficult. We brought the doctor in, and we asked the doctor the first question, Dr. O'Connor, were you ever told to lie about President Biden's health? And he pled the Fifth Amendment. So, we're doing the best we can. It would have been a lot better and easier if the doctor would have answered questions. The fact that he was trying to avoid self-incrimination, I think, is concerning and should be concerning to everyone. So, thank you all. We'll be back later.